Hello everyone. Through this video, I'm planning to do a comparative study of income tax and GST on a procedural aspect, because procedural aspect is very dry area, but we can make it more very interesting if you learn these provision by by learning sections. So what I'm planning to do is that I'm planning to do a comparative study on GST and income tax, where we have a lot of sections under both the act which talks about more or less same provisions. Okay, so I'm planning to do this comparative study in two parts, part 1 and part 2. In part 1 I'm going to discuss these much sections, and the part 2 I'm going to discuss about the other provisions like appeals provisions and advanced ruling provisions, because there are also a lot of sections under both the act which deals with the same provisions. Okay, so let us start with, but I just want to confirm that I'm not going to cover in detail all these provisions. I'm just giving you guidance as to how to learn these two provisions under the two acts in a same manner, and how to I'm just giving guidance as to how to study the sections. Okay, let's begin here. First thing I'm going to discuss about the self-assessment. Okay, self-assessment, this both the income tax and the GST is built on the principles of self-assessment, because in both the GST and the income tax, the act says that the taxpayer has to assess his tax liability on his own without depending on any tax authority. He has to assess his income on his own. So in income tax, section 140A talks about the self-assessment, and in GST it is section 59 which talks about the self-assessment, because under these two sections says that the taxpayer has to assess his income or assess his sales and purchase on the GST liability on his own, okay, without depending on any income tax authority or whatever it is. So that is the first thing, which is nothing much to discuss more. And second thing is that provisional assessment. Provisional assessment means, this is as the word indicates, is a provisional. It is not a final assessment. So when it will be invoked is when the taxpayer is unable to find out the value of the supply, or is unable to determine the rate of tax applicable. So what he can do, when he has a doubt about these two things, that is value of supply and the rate of GST, what he can do is that he can make an application to the proper officer saying that look at because I'm not able to determine these two things, value and rate of GST, so let me furnish my return on a provisional basis based on the information available with me as of now. Also, you have to remember one thing: even if you're filing a provisional assessment, there will be a final assessment in later point in time. So when the final assessment comes, what happens is that there can be two things may be happen. That is, the GST liability determined as per the final assessment will be more than the GST liability assessed in a provisional assessment. The second scenario is GST liability assessed in the final assessment will be lesser than the GST liability assessed in a provisional assessment. In the first scenario, when the final assessment GST is more than the provisional assessment GST, you have to pay the difference amount with interest. Okay, that is the first scenario. Second scenario is that a provisional assessment tax with GST was higher, so you might have paid higher taxes to the department, but when the final assessment comes, your tax liability has decreased or reduced. So what you will get the refund with interest. Okay, that is the thing you have to understand. But you have to remember there were a provisional assessment section in income tax also, that was section 141, but that has been omitted. So as of now, there is no provisional assessment section in income tax. So provisional assessment is only there in the GST. This simply when a provisional assessment will do when the taxpayer is unable to determine his value of supply properly, or he cannot determine the rate of GST, so he will just simply make an application, etc. So when you have to remember provisional assessment, as the word indicate, when a provisional assessment is there will be a final assessment. So you have to compare those two, final assessment and provisional assessment. That is second thing. Next one is scrutiny. Okay, scrutiny means before that, in income tax, I'll tell you how the whole system works. Okay, the first starting point is that the the taxpayer has to file. I'm talking about the income tax, okay, income tax return I'm talking about. Taxpayer has to file the return under section 139 subsection 1 or whatever it is, because the later return also possible. So you have to file the income tax return under section 139. Once you file your income tax return, first it will go to a computer based assessment, okay. So it will first assess your return, will first assess by a computer system, okay. Many of the people don't know about this provision. They think that this is also assessing officer is only doing. This is not the assessing officer who doing the first assessment. It is a computer based assessment, that is 143 subsection 1, okay. The speciality of 143 subsection 1, it uses the word all the return filed under section 139. So every return, no return can escape from 143.1. But 143.1 has put some restriction, because the computer cannot assess each and everything. They can assess only 5 things that you can read. 143.1 clause A to clause E, that you can read there, but I'm just giving an idea, okay. So once you file the return, first it will go to a computer, then computer will assess. A computer every return will assess. Then after that, okay, after that it will go to the assessing officer, okay. Once the computer is assessed the things, it will go to the assessing officer. Now the assessing officer pick up some of the return, okay, because the word used there may. So it is not a compulsory thing to do by the assessing officer, that is scrutiny assessment 143 subsection 3, that is a scrutiny assessment, okay. So scrutiny assessment, not every return will be processed under section 143 subsection 3, okay. So this is how it works. You will file the return, then it will go to a computer, that is 141. After that it will reach the assessing officer. Assessing officer will not do a scrutiny for every return. It's actually practically what they will do is that they will do a lot, okay. They will pick up it by lot, okay. So that is section 143 subsection 3. Scrutiny, as the word indicate, they will check each and everything, okay. So it is a dangerous provision, 143 subsection 3. The corresponding section under GST is 61. Okay, 61 also talks about the scrutiny. Here also I am again telling you, all the return will not take for scrutiny. Only some of the return will be taken for scrutiny based on different parameters. Okay, that they can decide that it will be based on lot. It will be computer generated random picking also there. So it is 61 and 143 subsection 3. Okay, there is a time limit given under section 143 subsection 3 that the assessing officer cannot issue the notice after 6 months from the end of the financial calendar. That you can just read. I'm just comparing these two sections, okay. Both the section talks about the same thing, scrutiny of the return filed. Here it is 143 subsection 3 says that scrutiny of the return furnished under section 139, and section 61 says that scrutiny of return filed under section 39. Just remove that one, okay. So 39, so you can easily connect those two sections also. So that is all about the scrutiny. Now another section, another provision, okay, under both the act is that best judgment, okay. As the word indicate, best judgment, don't think it from the taxpayer point of view. It is from the point of view of the income tax authority. Their best judgment definitely will be detrimental to the taxpayer, right? So when a best judgment will do is that is given under section 144. If you read section 144, this lists out 3 scenarios where the assessing officer have to do the best judgment. That is when the assessee has not replied to 140-1 notice. 140-1 notice is like when you are not filed the return of income, etc. Okay, so 140-1, or like what we say 143 to 143 subsection 2 notice, etc. Okay, and so when you are not replying to that notice, etc. So what he will do is that he will do a best judgment. Okay, there are 3 scenarios that you can just go through. Under these 3 scenarios, under section 144, assessing officer will do the what we say best judgment assessment. Okay, by taking all the relevant information available with him. So you have to remember, you might have studied only 144 which deals with best judgment, but remember there is another section also deals with best judgment, that is 145 subsection 3. I don't know whether you are aware of this section or not, but it also talks about the best judgment. So 144 is exclusively for best judgment assessment, but 145 subsection 3 also talks about the best judgment. But you have to remember one major difference between these two sections. 144 uses the word shall, Okay, shall means the assessing officer shall do the best judgment assessment under those three scenarios. But 145 subsection 3 uses the word may. That means it is not mandatory for the assessing officer to carry out the best judgment under section 145.3. 145.3 says that if the assessing officer is not satisfied with the books of accounts maintained, he can invoke the best judgment. But it is not mandatory. It is because the word uses there it is may, but here 145 uses the word shall. Okay, so when you can if you want you can add this also. Okay, 145 subsection 3 that also talks about the best judgment. Okay, corresponding section under GST is section 62 and section 63. Section 62 deals with when you are not filed the return. Okay, what is the purpose of filing a return? Because when you file the return of income, this is the information which we are giving to the tax authority to assess our income. Okay, so when you are not filed the return of income, what is the information with which they can do the assessment? Right, so section 62 talks about when you have not filed the return of income under section 39 or whatever it is, the department or the proper officer will do the judgment, will do the assessment on a best judgment. That means with the information, with the short information available with him, he will carry out the assessment. That is section 62. Section 63 also talks about the best judgment when you are not registered. You might have already studied section 22 and section 24 of the GST Act, which talks about the registration, right? So the situation where you have to get the registration. So even though you are liable to get the registration, but you are not taken up the registration, what the proper officer will do is that he will invoke section 63 to and do the best judgment. Okay, so this is the best judgment. So I again tell you what is the best judgment. Best judgment means in the case of lack of information available with the income tax officer or GST officer, they will do the assessment with the information available with them. Okay, so they will do a best judgment, and you have to think it from the point of view of the GST officers or income tax officers. It is not at all will be a best judgment for the taxpayer. Okay, another thing for the timing, I'm just giving you that in an income tax they uses the word assessing officer, and in the GST they uses the word proper officer. Both are similar offices. Okay, now next one, another thing I have to discuss is that special audit. Special audit, this is another kind of audit doing by the proper officer or assessing officer when they are unable to understand the books of accounts. Okay, for example, you have filed a return of income, and when the income tax officer or the GST officer took up this for the scrutiny, and he is reading the entire books, but he is not getting anything because it is a special nature, or it's very complex, or the volume is that high. So in the proper officer basically he won't be from the accounting background and all. So what he, for example, will not understand the books of accounts. So what he will do is that he will resort to or he will take help of another CA or CMA. In 142 subsection 2A, that is special audit under income tax, only chartered accountant can carry out the CA, can carry out the special audit. But when it comes to GST, that is section 66, both CA and CMA can do the special audit. I'll tell you a simple procedure how the special audit works. So the income tax officer will take these income tax officer or GST officer will take the books of accounts for scrutiny, and when he doing the scrutiny, he is not able to understand the books of accounts because he is not able to understand books of accounts because of its nature and complexity, etc. So what they will do is that he will intimate the taxpayer to get his account audited by a CMA. But it is not the taxpayer who has to appoint the CA or CMA. It is a commissioner. Commissioner will nominate the names of the CA and CMA to the taxpayer, and the taxpayer has to choose any one of the CA or CMA, and then that CA or CMA has to do the audit of the books of accounts of that taxpayer. Remember, this audit is irrespective of whether other audit has been carried out. That means even if other audit already have been carried on, this special audit may be ordered by the proper officer or the assessing officer. But remember, all the expenses, including the remuneration, everything will be borne by the central government. That means commissioner. Okay, nothing has to be borne by the taxpayer. Okay, that is special audit. So you can connect 142 subsection 2A, that is special audit under Income Tax Act, and section 66 is a special audit under GST Act. Okay, both talks about the similar thing, but only difference is that in the income tax, only CA can appointed, CA can be appointed by the commissioner. But under GST, whether it is CA or CMA, these two persons can be conducted session under GST. Another thing is audit of accounts. Okay, it is normally termed as tax audit under income tax. Okay, tax audit, you might be knowing the tax when a person has to do the tax audit, that is given under section 44A, right? 44AB audit. Normally, in practically we call it as a 44AB audit. 44AB audit, every person, okay, whether it is service provider, etc., every person, when his in income tax for the service provider, it is a different thing, and it is what we said, in the sense like supplier of goods, etc. It is another provision. So section 44AB talks about before that, let me try to give you a small idea about how the 44AB works. Okay, before section 44AB, you have to know another one section, that is 144. Okay, 144A. This 144A talks about, not 144A, 44, okay. 44A talks about the maintenance of books of accounts. 44A, clause A and clause, it has two clauses, clause A and clause B. Clause A specify the specified professional, okay. Specified professional, you can read that specified professional, accountant and medical professional, legal professional. There are a lot of categories given under session, clause A. And clause B talks about the other professional or business. Other professional or business. Okay, so this is the two things. So one is specified professional and the other professional or business. Okay, so for the specified professional, if you look at it, we have presently taxation also. I'm not going to detail cover that. That is 44. What is it? 44 ADA, and it is 44 AD. Okay, fine. Now you have to understand this. For the specified professional, this 44AB or service provider, the 44AB, the limit is 50 lakh. But other professional or business, it is the what do we say? The limit is 1 crore. Okay, 1 crore. So if your aggregate turnover or gross receipts exceed that 50 lakh or 1 crore, you have to get your accounts audited by SCA. Okay, but the similar section under GST is section 35 subsection 5. This also similar to tax audit, because if your turnover, aggregate turnover exceeds 2 crores in the last financial year, you have to get your accounts audited by a CA or CMA. Okay, so these two things are dealing with the same provisions. Okay, so you can just go through that. So my intention was to keep the video as short as possible. That is the reason why I covered only these many sections or these many provisions. In the second part, I will be covering these appeal provisions and all this advanced ruling, etc. So if you find it very useful, please refer to your friends, etc. So please subscribe if you want more updates. Okay, thank you very much.